December 9th, 1944, 0530 hours. Hürtgen Forest, German border. Sergeant Cade Harlan Mercer, 27 years old. Former Kentucky coal miner crouched in frozen mud behind a shattered oak tree. In his left hand, a Springfield rifle. In his right pocket, a wooden matchbox. 48 matches inside. U.S. Army Command had called his idea a death wish. In 96 hours, those matches would eliminate 119 German snipers and collapse a defensive network the enemy had spent 6 months building. Mercer struck the match, 3 seconds of flame at a position 15 yards from where he actually sat. He moved 13 steps in complete silence back to his real nest. 80 yards away through the gray morning fog, a German sniper's head turned 2 inches to the left. The crack of Mercer's rifle split the forest, 1 German down, 118 to go. The Hürtgen Forest was 50 square miles of hell on the German border. 85% canopy density, trees so thick that sunlight barely reached the ground even at noon. The forest floor was a maze of fallen timber, ravines, and fog that settled like a living thing and refused to leave. It was December 1944, and the U.S. 28th Infantry Division had been pinned in this forest for 3 weeks. 21 days of trying to advance. 21 days of watching men die before they could identify where the shots came from. The German sniper network was perfect. 200 trained marksmen positioned across the sector, overlapping fields of fire, mutually supporting clusters, hides cut into terrain so carefully that even veteran scouts walked within 10 feet of German positions without seeing them. The numbers told the story. American casualties December 1st through 8th, 73 men killed in action. Forward scout mortality rate 90%. If you walked point in the Hürtgen, you died. It was mathematics. The kill ratio was 11-1 in favor of the Germans. Division 28 had made zero territorial progress in 3 weeks. The forest was a machine designed to kill Americans, and it was working exactly as the Germans had engineered it. The problem was fundamental. No sight lines beyond 60 yards. Sound distortion from echo delay of 0.3 to 0.8 seconds, which made locating shots impossible. You heard the crack of a rifle and your brain told you it came from the left, but the German was on your right. By the time you figured it out, you were dead. German doctrine was built for this. Patience, concealment, discipline. They fired rarely. They repositioned constantly. They revealed nothing without purpose. American doctrine said, wait for the enemy to make a mistake. Counter-snipe when opportunity presents itself. But the Germans weren't making mistakes, and Americans were dying. Captain Raymond Wallace stood in the command bunker on the morning of December 8th, staring at casualty reports that all said the same thing. Another patrol, another 7 men, another day of zero progress. We've tried everything, Wallace said to the officers around him. His voice was flat, exhausted. Counter-sniping doesn't work here. The best marksmen we have can't find targets. The forest swallows them. Lieutenant Virginia Kellerman, the division intelligence officer, set down a terrain map marked with red circles. Each circle represented a confirmed German position. There were 43 circles, and those were just the ones they knew about. Sir, I've run the probability models, Kellerman said. She was 29 years old, West Point educated, and she didn't waste words. German positions are mathematically invisible given current conditions. Visibility range, sound distortion, repositioning frequency. The math says we cannot win this fight with conventional counter-sniper tactics. Wallace looked at her. So what do we do, Lieutenant? We stop fighting conventionally, sir. Meaning what? Meaning we need someone who doesn't think like a sniper. Cade Harlan Mercer arrived at Division 28 headquarters on December 8th with a reputation that made people uncomfortable. Not because he was the best shot. His marksmanship scores were good, not exceptional. 198 out of 200 at basic training. Respectable, unremarkable. But there was something else in his file. A note from his Normandy commanding officer that said, unorthodox methods, 17 confirmed kills June through August. Recommend specialist assignment. Mercer doesn't hunt where the enemy is. He hunts where the enemy will be. When the recruiter had tested him back in Kentucky, Mercer had said something that stuck in the man's memory. I don't shoot what I see, sir. I shoot where the old man, the recruiter had written it down. Thought it was philosophy. Didn't realize it was a technical statement. Cade Mercer learned to see patterns in a place where patterns meant survival. Harlan County, Kentucky, Coal mine number 7, 1927. Cade was 10 years old. His father, Thomas Mercer, was a veteran miner, 23 years underground. Thomas had survived 2 collapses, 3 gas leaks, and more close calls than he could count. He'd survived because he could read the mine. One morning in April, Thomas took young Cade down into Section 4. The shift hadn't started yet. The tunnel was quiet except for the sound of water dripping somewhere in the darkness. "Listen, Cade," Thomas said, holding the oil lamp low. "The mind talks before it kills. You just gotta know the language." "What's it say, Pa?" Thomas pointed to a support timber 10 feet ahead. "See that crack started yesterday? Wasn't there last week. That's one sign." He moved the lamp. "Hear that sound, air pressure dropping. That's 2. He knelt, ran his fingers through coal dust on the ground. "Dust falling when there's no work happening. That's 3. 3 signs means what? 3 signs means you run, boy. 3 signs together means the mind's about to speak real loud." Cade looked at his father. "Did you tell the foreman?" "I did. He said I'm seeing ghosts. Said production schedule don't allow for ghost hunts." "What are you gonna do?" Thomas Mercer stood up, looked at his son for a long moment, then smiled. "I'm gonna trust the math, not the foreman." 6 hours later, Section 4 collapsed. Thomas Mercer died in the cave-in. But because he'd insisted on moving his crew to Section 6 against the foreman's orders, 12 other miners walked out alive. At the funeral, those 12 men came to Cade. Each one said the same thing. "Your father saw it coming. Your father saved us. Your father knew." Cade Mercer learned something that day that most people never learn. Patterns don't lie. People ignore them. People dismiss them. People call them ghosts. But patterns don't lie. And if you can read patterns, you can see the future. From age 12 to 17, Cade hunted rabbits in the hills around Harlan County. But he didn't hunt the way other boys did. He didn't track footprints or look for burrows. He watched how rabbits reacted, where they froze, how long they held still before the first twitch, which direction they bolted when startled from the left versus the right, how far they'd run before checking back. Every kill was preceded by a forecast, not a guess, a calculation. By age 17, Cade Mercer didn't call himself a good shot. He called himself a man who watches. When he turned 20, he became a mine safety inspector. The youngest in Kentucky. In 7 years, he predicted 11 near collapses. 11 times he evacuated sections hours before timbers failed. 11 times men called him paranoid, then called him a hero. He never got comfortable with the hero part. When the Army recruiter came through Harlan County in 1943, Cade enlisted not because he wanted to fight, but because the war was a pattern too. A pattern that was going to pull him in, whether he volunteered or not. Better to walk into it on his own terms. At basic training, instructors praised his rifle work, but what made them uneasy was the questions he asked. Most recruits asked, "How do I hide better? How do I stay quiet? How do I avoid detection?" Mercer asked, "What makes an enemy look? What is the trigger that causes detection? What reflex can't they suppress?" The instructors told him to focus on the manual. The manual had answers. The manual worked. Mercer didn't argue. He just wrote down their answers in his notebook and treated them like any other data point. One more predictable system, one more structure, waiting to be reverse engineered. Normandy, June through August, 1944. Cade Mercer got 17 confirmed kills on German snipers. Not through superior marksmanship, through superior prediction. He documented everything. German snipers repositioned every 8 to 12 minutes because German Field Manual 23-10 mandated it. Spotters checked their left shoulder before snipers fired because that's how they were trained to signal readiness. Muzzle discipline broke down after 47 minutes in a hide because human attention has limits, and the Germans were human. Mercer didn't beat German marksmen because he was faster. He beat them because he understood them. His commanding officer wrote in his evaluation, "CPEL Mercer employs unorthodox methodology, effective but difficult to teach. Recommends specialist assignment where independent thinking is asset, not liability." 3 months later, Cade Mercer received orders to report to the 28th Infantry Division in the Hurtgen Forest. They needed a specialist. They needed someone who thought differently. They were about to get both. December 8th evening, Captain Wallace's bunker. Mercer stood in front of a terrain map with Lieutenant Kellerman and Corporal Silas Reeves, the spotter, who'd been assigned to work with him. Reeves was 23, former engineering student from Pennsylvania. Smart kid, nervous energy, talked too much when he was scared. Kellerman pointed to red circles on the map. 43 confirmed German positions, estimated total 200 plus across the sector. They've had 6 months to prepare these hides, cut into hillsides reinforced with logs camouflaged with moss and forest debris. From 10 feet away, they're invisible. 10 feet, Reeves muttered. Jesus. They fire in overlapping patterns, Kellerman continued. You kill one, two others, have perfect view of your position. Standard counter-sniping says wait for them to reveal themselves through muzzle flash or movement. But they don't, Mercer said quietly. No, they don't. Mercer studied the map, not looking at the red circles, looking at the terrain between them, the spaces, the angles, the logic. What's their repositioning frequency? He asked. Kellerman glanced at her notes. Intelligence estimates 8 to 12 minutes between shots from the same hide. Then they displace. We've never caught one in the same spot twice. 8 to 12 minutes, Mercer repeated. That's doctrine. German manual mandates it. How do you know that? Because I read the manual, captured one at Normandy. Mercer tapped to the map. They're not improvising. They're following a script. Captain Wallace stepped forward. He was 46 career infantry, 3 Bronze Stars. He'd seen enough war to know when someone was bullshitting and when someone had an idea worth listening to. Sergeant Mercer, Wallace said, Lieutenant Kellerman tells me you have a proposal. Not a proposal, sir, an observation. Let's hear it. Mercer pointed to the map. German doctrine works because it's built on 3 assumptions. 1, Americans will try to spot them visually. 2, Americans will try to outweight them. 3, Americans will never do anything that violates our own doctrine. And all 3 assumptions are correct, sir, which is why we're losing. Wallace's jaw tightened. So what do you suggest? I suggest we violate assumption 3, meaning Mercer pulled a small wooden matchbox from his pocket. Set it on the map table. 48 wooden matches rattled inside, meaning we make them look at something they can't ignore, Mercer said. And when they look, we kill them. Silence in the bunker. Reeves stared at the matchbox. You want to use matches as bait. Not as bait, as a trigger. Kellerman leaned forward. Explain. Mercer opened the matchbox, took out a single match, held it up. Every soldier in every army is trained to identify light sources, he said. Basic training week 4. Light equals potential threat. Light equals enemy position. Light equals tactical intelligence. We know that, Wallace said. Yes, sir, but here's what we don't think about. The response to light isn't optional. It's automatic. You see light in combat, your brain processes it before you can stop it. Your training kicks in before your discipline can override it. Kellerman's eyes narrowed. She was following the logic. Orientation reflex. Exactly. The German sees a light source he has to mark it, has to assess it. His training demands it. His survival instinct demands it. He can't not look. And when he looks, Reeves said slowly, he moves his head. 2 inches, Mercer said. Maybe 3. Just enough to shift his angle of view toward the light. That movement breaks his camouflage profile for approximately 2.8 seconds. 2.8 seconds, Wallace repeated. You measured this, Normandy, sir, 17 times. Kellerman studied Mercer with new attention. You've used this before. Variations. Never in terrain this restrictive. But the principle holds. Light triggers orientation. Orientation creates exposure. Exposure creates opportunity. Wallace crossed his arms. Walk me through the mechanics. Mercer pointed to the matchbox. I strike a match at a false position. Secondary location 13 to 15 steps from my actual nest. The match burns for 3 seconds. German sniper sees it, can't ignore it, turns his head to mark the source. I fire from my actual position while he's oriented toward the decoy. And he never knows where you are. Never knows until it's too late, sir. Silence again, longer this time. Reeves broke it. That's insane. Maybe. That violates every counter-sniper protocol we have. FM 2175 says never reveal position under any circumstances. FM 2175 is why we have a 73 dead corporal. Reeves looked at Wallace, then back at Mercer. You're not revealing your position. You're revealing a fake position. Correct. And betting your life the German looks at the fake position long enough for you to shoot him. Not betting, calculating. Average orientation response time is 45 seconds. Exposure window is 2.8 seconds. That's a large enough margin. Kellerman picked up the matchbox, turned it over in her hands. Sergeant, I need to understand something. This isn't about marksmanship. This is about behavioral exploitation. Yes, ma'am. You're not hunting enemy snipers. You're hunting enemy reflexes. Mercer met her eyes. The sniper is the target. The reflex is the weapon. Lieutenant Virginia Kellerman had graduated top of her class at West Point. She understood tactics, probability force, multiplication. She'd spent 3 years in military intelligence analyzing enemy behavior patterns. And in 30 seconds, this Kentucky coal miner had just explained a concept that wasn't in any manual she'd ever read. Sergeant Mercer, she said carefully, what you're describing violates doctrine at a fundamental level. I'm not sure I can authorize this. Then don't authorize it, ma'am. Just don't stop it. That's not how the chain of command works. Ma'am, with respect, the chain of command has produced zero progress in 3 weeks. Maybe it's time to try something the chain of command doesn't recognize. Captain Wallace held up a hand. Everyone take a breath. He looked at Mercer. You're asking me to let you deliberately light fires in a combat zone to see if German snipers will look at them long enough for you to shoot them. Yes, sir. And if they don't look, if they're disciplined enough to ignore the light, then I've wasted 3 seconds in one match, sir. But they will look. I've tested this 17 times, 0 failures. Normandy wasn't the Hurtgen. No, sir, but German doctrine is German doctrine. FM 2310 is the same manual whether they're in France or Germany. Wallace looked at Kellerman. Lieutenant, what's your assessment? Kellerman set down the matchbox. Sir, from a probability standpoint, Sergeant Mercer's methodology has theoretical merit. He's identifying a structural vulnerability in enemy training. If German doctrine mandates orientation response to light sources, and if that response is consistent, then exploiting that response is tactically sound. You're saying it could work. I'm saying the math supports it, but math isn't combat. Wallace turned back to Mercer. Here's the deal, Sergeant. You get 1 day. You produce 5 confirmed kills by noon tomorrow. Using this matchbox trick, I'll back you for another 72 hours. You get Americans killed, you're done. Court-martial if necessary. Clear. Crystal, sir. And Mercer. Sir. This better not be ghost hunting. Mercer picked up the matchbox, slipped it back into his pocket. Ghosts are men are predictable, Captain. Men are. December 9th, 0530 hours. The forest was structurally hostile at dawn. Temperature 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Fog settled in layers between the trees, thick as smoke. Visibility maybe 40 yards on a good angle. Sound carried wrong. Every crack of a branch could be 10 feet away or 100. The brain couldn't process the space correctly. Cade Mercer lay behind the shattered oak tree, Springfield rifle resting on a fallen log. He'd been in position for 90 minutes, hadn't moved except to breathe. The cold had worked its way through his wool coat into his bones. His fingers were numb inside his gloves. 10 yards to his left, Silas Reeves lay in a shallow depression with binoculars scanning the tree line across the ravine where intelligence suspected a German hide. Reeves was good at staying quiet when it mattered. Right now it mattered. Anything, Mercer whispered. Nothing, no movement, no weight. Reeves adjusted the binoculars fractionally. There, fallen timber cluster, 11 o'clock, 60 yards. Something's off about the moss pattern. Off how? Too uniform, like it was placed, not grown. That's a hide. Can't see inside it. You won't, not until they move. Reeves lowered the binoculars. So we wait for them to move. No, Mercer said, we make them move. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the matchbox. The sound of it opening was loud in the frozen silence. Reeves turned his head. You're really doing this, Reeves said. I'm really doing this. And if it doesn't work, then we learn something. Mercer pulled out a single wooden match, studied the terrain. 13 steps to his left was a small rise, just enough elevation to be plausible as a shooting position. A place where a careless sniper might set up. Not hidden, not fortified, just plausible. He moved. 13 steps, silent as a ghost. His father had taught him how to walk in a mine without making sound. Same principle. Weight on the outside of your foot. Roll inward, no heel strike. Breathe through your mum. 13 steps. He placed the match on a piece of bark. Struck it. The flame was impossibly bright in the gray dawn. 3 seconds of orange light that screamed, "Here I am," to anyone watching. Then he extinguished it and moved back to his real position before the smoke cleared. Reeves had his binoculars locked on the German hide. 47 seconds passed. "Movement," Reeves whispered. "Head turning. 2 inches left. I have a—" Mercer fired. The Springfield's crack split the forest. A flat, hard sound that echoed wrong in the fog. Across the ravine, something fell inside the timber cluster. Silence. Reeves kept his binoculars steady. 30 seconds. 40. No return fire. No movement. "Confirm," Mercer said. "Confirm. I saw the impact. High chest just below the throat. He's down." Mercer pulled out his notebook, small leather-bound pages filled with handwriting. He wrote December 9th, 0543, kill no one. Reaction time 47 seconds. Exposure 2.1 seconds. Method effective. Reeves was staring at him. "That actually worked." "German reflex intact," Mercer said, writing. "Doctrine confirmed. Predictability confirmed." "Jesus Christ, Cade. You just killed a man with a match." "I killed a man with a rifle, Silas. The match just told me when." Kill number 2 came at 0615. Different hide. Same method. Match at false position. German head turns. Rifle cracks. Man dies. Reaction time 42 seconds. Kill number 3, 0642. Reaction time 51 seconds. Kill number 4, 0703. Reaction time 38 seconds. Kill number 5, 0721. Reaction time 44 seconds. By 0800 hours, Cade Mercer had killed 8 German snipers. 8 men who'd spent months perfecting their hides, their discipline, their patience. 8 men who died because they did exactly what their training told them to do. Reeves was no longer questioning the method. He was just calling out targets. 11 o'clock, 70 yards, brush pile. Match, flame, movement, shot, confirmed. 2 o'clock, 85 yards, log structure. Match, flame, movement, shot, confirmed. Mercer wrote everything down. Reaction times, angles, distances, wind speed, temperature. He treated each kill like a laboratory result. No emotion, no triumph, just data. By noon, he had 14 confirmed kills. 14 Germans who never saw him, never knew where the shots came from, never understood that the light they'd been trained to mark had marked them instead. Captain Wallace arrived at Mercer's position at 12:15 with Lieutenant Kellerman. They'd heard the shots, counted them, waited for confirmation. 14, Wallace said. It wasn't a question. 14 confirmed, sir. 0 American casualties. German activity in this sector down approximately 35% based on observed repositioning frequency. Kellerman was looking at Mercer's notebook. He'd left it open. Pages of numbers, tememem, calculations, tally marks. "You're treating this like an experiment," she said. "It is an experiment, ma'am. I'm testing a hypothesis. Hypothesis German doctrine creates exploitable reflexes. Result hypothesis confirmed. Repeatability, 14 out of 14 trials successful." Wallace looked across the ravine at the German positions, saw nothing, which meant Mercer had been shooting at ghosts all morning. Except the ghosts were real and they were dead. "You bought yourself 3 more days, Sergeant," Wallace said. "But understand something. This isn't about the kills. This is about breaking their network. Can you scale this?" Mercer looked at the matchbox. 34 matches left. "Yes, sir," he said. "I can scale it." 15 kilometers east, German Captain Heinrich Vogel sat in a dugout command post reading casualty reports that made no tactical sense. 14 snipers, all dead, all killed between 0530 and 1200 hours, all in the same sector. No pattern to the kills except timing, no muzzle flashes detected, no American movement observed. His radio operator, a young corporal named Ernst, set down another message slip. "Hauptmann, 3 more reports. Survivors say the same thing. They saw small lights, fires maybe, then shots from unknown positions." "Fires," Vogel looked up. "What kind of fires?" "Small, sir, brief. 3 seconds perhaps. Like matches." "Matches," Vogel said, the words slowly testing it. Our snipers are dying because they're looking at matches. I don't know, sir. The reports are confused. Men are scared. Vogel walked to the map board. 14 red X marks where his men had died, all clustered in Section 7, the sector facing the American 28th Division. He'd spent 6 months building this network. 200 trained marksmen, perfect positions, perfect discipline. The Americans hadn't advanced 10 meters in 3 weeks. Now 14 men dead in 6 hours. Ernst, Vogel said quietly, get me every surviving sniper who saw these lights. I want to talk to them personally. Joel Hauptmann. After the corporal left, Vogel stood alone looking at the map. 14 kills in 6 hours wasn't luck. It wasn't random, it was method. Someone on the American side had found something. A vulnerability he didn't know existed. Vogel pulled out his own notebook, opened to a blank page. Wrote at the top, Der Amerikaner mit den Streichhölzern, the American with the matches. Then he began trying to reverse engineer what Cade Mercer had discovered. He had 3 days to figure it out. After that, Heinrich Vogel would run out of men. December 10th arrived with fog so dense you could taste it. Thick, wet, clinging. The kind of fog that erased the world beyond 30 yards and turned the Hürtgen forest into a sensory void. Most snipers would have packed up and waited for visibility. Fog erased depth perception. Fog distorted distance. Fog turned every shadow into a threat and every threat into a shadow. But Cade Mercer saw the fog differently. He saw amplification. At 0600 hours, he crouched with Silas Reeves in a bowl-shaped depression overlooking a suspected German observation point. A tangle of fallen timber that intelligence believed housed at least 2 shooters and a spotter. Reeves swept the area with binoculars, seeing nothing but gray. Cade, I can't see worth a damn in this. We should wait it out. No, Mercer said quietly. The fog is perfect. Perfect for what? Getting lost. Perfect for light. Mercer pulled out the matchbox. 34 matches left. He studied the terrain, not looking for shapes, but for geometry. Not where men were, but where men needed to look to do their jobs. In clear conditions, Mercer said, a match flame is visible maybe 50 yards, competes with ambient light. But in follow, he struck a match 40 yards north of their position. The flame pushed through the haze like a beacon. In fog, flame travels before shape does, creates temporary advantage. The match burned for 3 seconds. Mercer extinguished it. Yesterday I pulled snipers out one by one. He continued, reaching for a second match. Today I'm pulling out teams. He lit the second match 30 yards west. Different angle, different distance. Let it burn and die. Reeves kept his binoculars trained on the German position. No movement yet. Wait for the third. Mercer crawled forward slightly, positioning for better angle. Struck the third match 20 yards south. This was the stress test. 1 match triggered orientation. 2 matches triggered attention. 3 matches forced prioritization. And prioritization was when human reaction became predictable. At the German hide, something shifted. Subtle. A faint adjustment in the fallen timber. Then another separate from the first. 2 distinct movements from 2 distinct positions. 2 in the pile, Reeves murmured. I've got micro movement. They're tracking the lights, trying to figure out which one's the threat. Good, Mercer said. He didn't fire, not yet. 3 matches had identified them. The fourth would expose them. He crawled forward, not toward the Germans, but toward a small rise that placed him at a sharper angle to their hides. This was the refinement. Yesterday's method worked. Today's method worked better. Mercer struck the 4th match and did something different. He didn't hold it. He planted it on a thin strip of bark, letting it burn openly a foot above the ground, clear as a lighthouse, 25 yards from the German position. This wasn't bait anymore. This was command. You cannot train soldiers to ignore a direct threat in their kill zone. You can only hope they react slowly. The Germans didn't react slowly. 2 silhouettes shifted simultaneously, sniper and spotter realigning to address the flame burning practically in their faces. That quarter second of movement, that break in discipline, was all Mercer needed. The Springfield cracked once. First silhouette dropped. Second shot less than a second later. Spotter fell. A third German deeper in the brush realized the trap too late and tried to retreat. The third round caught him mid-step. 11 seconds. 3 bodies. 0 German rounds fired. Reeves exhaled like he'd been holding his breath underwater. That wasn't sniping. That was an execution. That was pattern pressure, Mercer said, writing in his notebook. Kill 15, 16, 17. Method sequential lighting. Fog amplification confirmed. Pattern pressure, Reeves repeated. What the hell does that mean? Means I'm not giving them time to think. I'm giving them stimuli faster than doctrine can process. 1 light they observe. 2 lights they assess. 3 lights they prioritize. 4 lights they panic. Panic creates exposure. Mercer looked at the matchbox. 30 matches left. This is going to be a long day, Silas. It was. By 0800 hours, Mercer had executed 3 more multi-match sequences. Different positions, different intervals, same results. Germans trying to track multiple light sources forced to make choices. Choices revealing positions, positions becoming graves. By noon, the kill count for day 2 had reached 19. But the kills themselves weren't the evolution. The types of kills were. The day before, Mercer had pulled out snipers. Individuals. Now he was pulling out observers, radiomen, machine gun crews, anyone trained to monitor enemy signals and react according to doctrine. The matchbox trick was no longer targeting specific soldiers. It was targeting organizational behavior. German forces were reacting collectively now. A match didn't just attract one pair of eyes. It attracted entire fire teams conditioned through months of training to orient on light-assessed threats, coordinate responses. And every coordinated response revealed the structure of their network. Reeves watched Mercer mark positions in his notebook, drawing lines between kills, mapping relationships. You're not counting bodies anymore. You're mapping their organization. Same thing, and Mercer said. Every kill tells me how they communicate, who defers to whom, who moves first, where their command relationships are. And then once you know that, then I know what happens when I remove the right piece. At 1300 hours, Mercer and Reeves relocated to higher ground overlooking a ravine. Intelligence suspected a German forward observer position somewhere in the rocks below. Forward observers were high-value targets. They directed artillery. They coordinated infantry movement. Kill a forward observer, and you blind an entire sector. But forward observers were also paranoid, trained to stay invisible, rarely moved, never revealed themselves unless absolutely necessary. Mercer studied the ravine for 20 minutes, saw nothing, which meant nothing or meant everything. How do you find someone who won't move? Reeves asked. You don't find them. You make them irrelevant by being somewhere they're not watching. Mercer pointed to 3 positions forming a triangle around the suspected observer location. Each point was 60 yards from the center. I'm not trying to kill the observer directly. I'm making him think he's surrounded. He placed 3 matches at the 3 points. Didn't light them simultaneously. Lit them in sequence with 30-second intervals. North, east, south. The pattern simulated American patrol movement 3-man team executing a standard encirclement. From the German observer's perspective, it would look like Americans were closing in. Doctrine said he needed to report it. Report meant breaking radio silence. Breaking radio silence meant exposure. Mercer and Reeves waited. 90 seconds after the 3rd match, a German soldier emerged from the rocks. Not far, just enough to get better line of sight for his radio antenna. Just enough to send coordinates. Just enough. Mercer didn't shoot. He was already reaching for the radio handset connected to division artillery. Lieutenant Kellerman's voice crackled through. Mercer, what do you have? 1 forward observer, exposed grid 4472. Single target. Request precision fire. Stand by. Across the sector, an American 105mm howitzer adjusted elevation. 1 round. That's all they could spare. Ammunition was precious. This shot had to count. Shot out, Kellerman said. 12 seconds later, the shell arrived. Single explosion in the rocks. The German observer disappeared in smoke and shrapnel. Reeves stared at the impact site. You just called artillery on 1 guy. 1 guy who would have called artillery on 50 of ours, Mercer said. Math works. This is beyond sniping. I'm not a sniper anymore, Silas. I'm a system hunter. And that was the pivot point of day 2. Mercer wasn't eliminating individuals. He was identifying load-bearing pieces of German command structure and removing them. Forward observers, radiomen, senior NCOs who coordinated sniper teams. The Matchbox trick wasn't revealing targets anymore. It was revealing organizational hierarchy, decision trees, communication pathways, the invisible architecture that let 200 German snipers function as a network instead of scattered individuals. By 1400 hours, Mercer had directed 3 artillery strikes using his method. Each strike eliminated high-value targets the Germans thought were safely hidden behind their sniper screen. Lieutenant Kellerman arrived at Mercer's position at 15:30 with Captain Wallace. They'd been monitoring German radio traffic. The change was dramatic. Their communications are erratic, Kellerman said. Frequencies changing constantly. Officers countermanding each other. Patrol timing completely broken. We're seeing gaps in coverage that weren't there yesterday. Wallace was looking at Mercer's notebook open to a page showing a hand-drawn network diagram. Boxes and arrows showing relationships between German positions. X marks through 6 boxes. You're not just killing them, you're mapping them. Yes, sir. Every reaction tells me structure. Structure tells me where the critical nodes are. And you're killing the nodes. Yes, sir. Wallace looked across the sector toward German lines invisible in the fog. How much damage can you do in 3 more days? Mercer counted the matches left in the box. 27. Enough to break them, sir, if they don't adapt. Kellerman's expression changed. They will adapt. I intercepted a German transmission an hour ago. They're calling an emergency briefing. Officers from 3 companies. They know something's killing their network, and they're trying to figure out what. How long until they figure it out? Tomorrow morning, probably. Maybe sooner. Mercer nodded slowly. Then tomorrow's going to be different. Different how? Wallace asked. They'll issue orders not to look at light. Forbid orientation response. Try to override the reflex with discipline. And if they succeed, then the trick dies and I go back to conventional methods. But you don't think they'll succeed? No, sir, because once you tell a man not to do something, that thing is all he can think about. They're going to create the vulnerability I need by trying to eliminate it. Reeves was staring at Mercer. You predicted they'd do this. That's why you're mapping their structure today, because tomorrow you won't be able to use the same method. Tomorrow I'll use a better method. Wallace and Kellerman exchanged glances. Kellerman spoke first. What method? Can't explain it yet, ma'am. Still working out the math. But if I'm right, ordering Germans not to look at light will be the worst decision their command makes this week. Mercer closed his notebook. 27 matches left. 19 Germans dead today. 33 total over 2 days. German sniper activity in the sector had dropped by 60%. American patrols were advancing through positions that had been death traps 48 hours ago. Private David Chen's platoon had made 3 successful reconnaissance runs without casualties. The network was breaking, but the most dangerous part was coming, because tomorrow the Germans would stop reacting to his trick, and Mercer would have to make them react to something worse. Their own fear. 15 kilometers east, Heinrich Vogel sat in the command dugout with 4 surviving senior NCOs and 2 company commanders. On the table between them, casualty lists that read like mathematics exercises. 19 dead today, 33 total. Kill patterns clustered around light sightings. It's the matches, one company commander said. The American is using fire to draw orientation response. Our men see light, they mark it, they expose themselves. Then we stop looking at light, the other commander said. Simple solution. It's not simple, Vogel said quietly. He'd been studying reports all afternoon, trying to reverse engineer American methodology. This isn't random. Every kill corresponds to precise light placement, multiple lights in sequence. The American isn't just using matches. He's using behavioral science. Behavioral science, the first commander sounded skeptical. He's exploiting our training. FM 2310 mandates threat assessment of light sources. He's weaponizing that mandate. When we look, we die. But if we don't look, we can't identify real threats. Silence around the table. So what do we do, Hauptmann? One NCO asked. Vogel pulled out a sheet of paper already prepared. New standing order effective immediately. Do not react to light sources. I don't care if you see a bonfire. Do not turn your head. Do not adjust position. Do not mark it. Light is bait. Ignore it completely. That violates doctrine, sir. Doctrine is killing us. This order overrides doctrine. The company commanders looked uncomfortable but didn't argue. The math was simple. Continue following doctrine and lose 50 men by week's end. Try something different and maybe survive. Distribute to all positions by 1800 hours, Vogel said. Anyone who violates this order gets court-martialed. If we survive this, I'll explain to higher command why I rewrote their manual. After the others left, Vogel sat alone with his notebook. He'd started tracking the Americans' pattern. 33 kills in 2 days. Escalating methodology. Single matches becoming multiple matches. Individual kills becoming coordinated strikes. Whoever this American was, he wasn't a normal sniper. Normal snipers disappeared into terrain. This one was creating terrain, rewriting the battlefield itself. Vogel wrote at the bottom of the page, "He doesn't hunt where we are. He hunts what we do. To beat him, we must stop doing anything." Then he crossed it out and wrote something else. "To beat him, I must become him." Vogel pulled out his own matchbox. December 11th began with clear skies for the first time in 4 days. Temperature 22 degrees. Visibility 100 yards in open areas, 60 in dense forest. Sound traveled correctly again. You could hear properly, which meant you could locate shots, which meant conventional warfare rules applied. Except nothing was conventional anymore. At 0600 hours, Mercer struck a match at a false position overlooking a suspected German hide. Waited for the orientation response that had worked 33 times. Nothing happened. 45 seconds. 60. 90. No movement at the German position. Reeves lowered his binoculars. "They're not looking." "No," Mercer said. "They're not. The trick's dead." The trick's evolved. Mercer was already moving circling wide to approach the German position from a completely different angle. Reeves followed, confused but trusting. "If they're not looking at the match in front of them," Mercer explained quietly as they repositioned, "then they can't see what the match reveals behind them." Behind them. They reached a narrow corridor with slight elevation advantage. Mercer could see the German hide from this angle barely. Logs and camouflage netting. He struck a match and held it behind himself, arm extended. The flame didn't illuminate the Germans. It illuminated the space between them and Mercer. For 3 seconds, the Germans became silhouettes against faint orange glow. 3 heads, 2 shoulders, 1 firing aperture projected against the light. Mercer extinguished the match. The forest collapsed back into normal shadow. But he'd seen the geometry. That was enough. 7 seconds later, 3 shots. The machine gun nest went silent. Reeves stared at the bodies. That wasn't the trick. That was something else. "Backlighting," what Mercer said. "Theater spotlight principle. Light from behind the actor shows you their outline." They were so focused on not looking at light in front, they never considered light from behind. That's not sniping, that's X-ray vision. That's doctrine inversion. They changed their behavior to counter my method. The change created a new vulnerability. All I did was exploit it. Kills 23 through 28 came the same way over the next 4 hours. Germans had been ordered not to look at matches, so they didn't, which meant Mercer could place light anywhere he wanted and they'd hold position, making themselves perfect silhouettes for backlighting. The Germans had solved yesterday's problem by creating today's problem. Classic tactical feedback loop. But at 1100 hours, something changed. Mercer was positioning for another sequence when Silas Reeves grabbed his arm. "Cade, match. 40 yards left. That's not us." Mercer's head snapped around. Through the trees, a small flame flickered. 3 seconds. Then darkness. Neither of them moved. 10 minutes later, another match. Different position, different angle. "Someone's using your method," Reeves whispered. "No," Mercer said slowly. "Someone's using my language, testing me the same way I tested them." A third match flared 15 minutes later. Whoever was lighting them was probing mapping, trying to identify Mercer's reaction pattern. "Vogel," Mercer said, "has to be. He finally figured it out." "Figured what out?" "That the matches aren't the trick, the reaction is, and now he's trying to make me react." For 2 hours, neither sniper fired. Both used matches to probe. Both understood the game now. First person to break pattern, lost. First person to orient toward light, exposed themselves. It became a silence louder than gunfire. 2 predators sharing the same hunting method, both aware that impulse meant death. Reeves whispered, "How do we beat someone who thinks exactly like you?" Same thinking isn't the problem, Mercer said. Same limitations are. He'd been preparing for this possibility since yesterday. 3 match positions already placed earlier in the morning, unlit waiting. Each position had a slow-burn fuse carefully constructed from match heads and paper. One man could only light 1 match at a time. But one man with preparation could light 3 matches simultaneously if he'd already built the system. Mercer lit the first fuse. It would take 45 seconds to reach the match. He lit the second fuse. Same delay. Third fuse. All timed to ignite within 2 seconds of each other. Then he settled into position and waited. 43 seconds later, 3 matches ignited simultaneously. Northwest, south, perfect triangle, 60 yards apart. From Heinrich Vogel's position, the sight was impossible. 3 flames at once. No single operator could manage it. Team Trap American Patrol German doctrine said, when stimuli exceed known capability, observe to gather information. Assess force size. Determine threat level. Vogel's head shifted 3 inches to triangulate the light sources. Mercer's rifle cracked once. Silence. Reeves kept his binoculars steady. Confirm. Confirm. High chest center mass. He's down. Mercer moved forward carefully, Reeves covering. They reached the German position. Heinrich Vogel lay against a tree notebook, still in his hand. Mercer picked it up. The pages were nearly identical to his own. Reaction time logs. Behavioral patterns. Kill analysis. Vogel had been studying him the same way he'd been studying the Germans. The last page read in German, Der Amerikaner denkt in Systemen. Ich muss schneller denken. The American thinks in systems. I must think faster. He almost had you, Reeves said quietly. He had the method, Mercer replied. Just not enough time to master it. Mercer looked at the notebook for a long moment, then placed it back in Vogel's hand. Respect for a worthy opponent. Then he stood and moved on. Kill 119. The network's architect was dead, but the network itself still had hundreds of soldiers. And those soldiers had just received new orders that Mercer was about to weaponize in ways Vogel never imagined, because Day 4 wasn't about kills anymore. Day 4 was about fear, and fear was more destructive than bullets. At 1600 hours, Lieutenant Kellerman found Mercer at his forward position with urgent intelligence. German prisoner interrogations had revealed something unexpected. They're terrified, Kellerman said. Not of you specifically, of light itself. We've got 3 POWs who say their units won't engage targets if it means exposing themselves to any brightness. Sunlight, reflections, anything. The prohibition spread, Mercer said. More than spread, it metastasized. Vogel ordered them not to react to light, but the order combined with casualties created a psychological cascade. Now they believe light equals death. Not light might reveal position, but light itself kills you. Reeves looked up from cleaning his rifle. That's not tactical anymore. That's superstition. Superstition is just pattern recognition without understanding, Mercer said. They've seen 37 men die after seeing light. Their brains made a connection. Light causes death. The connection is wrong, but the pattern is real. Kellerman pulled out intercepted German radio transcripts. Listen to this. Company commander to battalion requests permission to withdraw from sector. Men refusing to maintain positions with western exposure due to afternoon sun. Another one, machine gun crew abandoned post. Reason cited mirror reflection from destroyed vehicle. They're becoming paralyzed. How widespread, Mercer asked. Fragmentary reports suggest it's affecting at least 2 companies. Maybe 3. German fire discipline has completely collapsed in some sectors. They're not shooting at American patrols because they're afraid muzzle flash will reveal them. Mercer turned to Reeves. Get Private Chen on the radio. I want confirmation from ground level. 5 minutes later, Chen's voice crackled through. Sergeant Mercer, this is Chen. You're not going to believe this, but we just walked right past a German position. I saw them. They saw us. They had perfect shots. They didn't fire. They just sat there, staring at us like they were frozen. How many? At least 8, maybe more. We could have killed every one of them, but orders are to advance, not engage unless engaged first. Mercer looked at Kellerman. It's not 2 companies. It's the whole sector. One man with matches did this, Kellerman said. No, ma'am. Their doctrine did this. I just showed them Their doctrine could kill them. Now they don't trust anything, not their training, not their instincts, not their own perception. An army that can't trust its perception can't fight. Captain Wallace arrived 20 minutes later with division command staff. They'd been getting reports all afternoon, German resistance crumbling. American units advancing faster than they could coordinate. Positions that had been impassable for 3 weeks suddenly wide open. Wallace looked at Mercer with an expression somewhere between respect and unease. "Sergeant, I need you to explain something to me. How does one man with a matchbox collapse an entire defensive network?" "I didn't collapse it, sir. I inverted it. Germans built their network on doctrine. Patient, disciplined, react to specific stimuli in specific ways. That predictability made them effective. I weaponized the predictability, made their most reliable response into their fatal flaw. Once they realized their training was killing them, they stopped trusting their training. Without trust, the network is just 200 scared men sitting in holes. And Vogel was the only one who understood what you were doing." "Yes, sir. He tried to become unpredictable, used my own method against me. But he needed time to develop it. I didn't give him that time." Wallace nodded slowly. "You've got 24 hours left on your authorization. What's your plan for day 4, Aiken?" Mercer looked at the matchbox. 21 matches remaining. "Day 4 is about finishing it, sir. The Germans are blind by choice now. Tomorrow I'm going to prove to them they were right to be scared." As the officers left, Reeves turned to Mercer. "How do you kill men who are already terrified of you?" "I don't kill them, Silas. I prove the myth. Make them believe I'm everywhere. Make them believe light itself hunts them. By tomorrow night, they'll be fighting ghosts instead of Americans. And you can't win a war when you're fighting ghosts." Mercer opened his notebook to a fresh page. Wrote at the top, December 12th, "Final day. Objective total psychological collapse. 21 matches to create a legend that would outlast the battle itself. 21 matches to prove that the most powerful weapon in warfare isn't the one that kills the most men. It's the one that makes men unable to fight." The sun was setting on December 11th. Fog was rolling back in, temperature dropping. Somewhere in the German lines, soldiers sat in their positions, refusing to look at the twilight because twilight was light, and light meant death. The network was broken. The architect was dead. The survivors were paralyzed. And Cade Mercer still had 1 day left to ensure they stayed that way. December 12th arrived cold and clear. The fog had burned off by 0600, leaving the forest exposed under pale winter sun. Visibility stretched to 100 yards in places. Conditions that should have favored the Germans, who knew this terrain better than anyone. But the Germans weren't fighting terrain anymore. They were fighting their own minds. Cade Mercer crouched behind a fallen spruce at the edge of a ravine, watching American infantry advance through positions that 3 days ago would have been killing grounds. 2nd Platoon Easy Company. 22 men walking in loose formation through a corridor the Germans had defended for 6 weeks. No shots fired. Silas Reeves lay beside him with binoculars tracking German positions they'd mapped over 3 days. "I count at least 6 hides with line of sight on that platoon. Nobody's engaging." "They can't," Mercer said quietly. "Firing means muzzle flash. Muzzle flash is light. Light means I kill them. That's what their pattern recognition is telling them now. So they just sit there, no. They sit there until someone orders them to move or shoot, but their officers are dead or scattered. Chain of command is fractured. Without orders, they default to the last thing they were told: don't react to light, don't expose yourself. Stay hidden." Reeves lowered the binoculars. "We broke them without breaking them." "No, we broke the system that made them effective. Individual Germans are still dangerous. But a sniper without orders, without communication, without trust in his own training, that's just a scared man with a rifle." Private David Chen's voice crackled over the radio. "Mercer, this is Chen. 2nd Platoon just passed 3 German positions. We saw them. They saw us. Nobody fired. What the hell is happening?" "You're watching psychological collapse in real time, Chen. Keep moving. Mark positions, but don't engage unless they engage first. Division wants this sector cleared by nightfall." "Roger that. This is the strangest damn thing I've ever seen." The radio went silent. Mercer pulled out his notebook, checked his calculations. 21 matches left. 119 confirmed kills over 3 days. But the numbers weren't the point anymore. The point was what happened in the spaces between numbers. The fear, the paralysis, the collapse of an entire doctrine because one man had shown them doctrine could be weaponized. Lieutenant Virginia Kellerman appeared through the trees with Captain Wallace and two intelligence NCOs. They'd been monitoring German radio traffic since dawn. Kellerman's face was pale. "Sergeant Mercer," she said, "you need to hear this." She handed him a translated radio transcript. German transmission intercepted at 0545 hours. Message begins. "All units, this is Battalion Command. Reports indicate American sniper employing unconventional light-based tactics. Standing order remains, do not react to illumination sources. However, multiple units report casualties despite compliance with orders. Some personnel claim American can project light through solid objects. Others report light appearing simultaneously in multiple locations. Psychological evaluations suggest possible mass hallucination or coordinated deception. Until situation clarified, all units maintain defensive posture. Avoid exposure to any light source, including sunlight reflections or indirect illumination." Message ends. Wallace read over Mercer's shoulder. "They think you can project light through walls." "No, sir, they don't know what to think. Their men keep dying, light keeps appearing. Cause and effect are breaking down in their perception. When you can't trust your perception, you can't function." This transcript says mass hallucination. They're questioning their own sanity. "Yes, sir, that's what happens when pattern recognition fails. The brain keeps trying to make sense of data that doesn't fit existing models. Eventually, it creates new models even if those models are wrong. Some Germans think I'm supernatural. Others think it's coordinated deception. Both groups are paralyzed because neither explanation gives them actionable intelligence." Kellerman pulled out a second transcript. "This one's worse. German medical officer reporting to division headquarters, requesting psychiatric support for what he calls light-induced combat stress disorder. He's got soldiers refusing to leave bunkers because they're terrified of shadows. Others won't maintain positions with reflective surfaces nearby. One squad abandoned their post because morning dew on leaves created light refraction." Reeves stared at the papers. "Morning dew, they're scared of dew. They're scared of pattern," Arthur said. "Dew creates light effects. Light effects correlate with death in their experience. Their survival instinct is screaming at them to avoid anything that creates light. Doesn't matter if it's rational. Fear isn't rational." Wallace folded the transcripts, looked at Mercer with an expression that mixed respect with something darker. Unease, maybe. "Sergeant, what you've done here goes beyond tactics. You've weaponized psychology, turned an enemy's training into a phobia." "Yes, sir. That weapon doesn't stop when the battle ends. Those German soldiers, the ones who survive, they're going to carry this fear for years, maybe forever." Mercer met Wallace's eyes. "Yes, sir, they will. And every German unit that hears about what happened here will think twice before following doctrine blindly. That's not cruelty, sir. That's leverage. One battle permanent, psychological impact across their entire army." "At what cost to you?" The question hung in the cold air. Mercer didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. "Whatever the cost is, sir, it's less than the cost of losing 200 more Americans taking this forest the conventional way." Wallace nodded slowly. "You've got until 1800 hours. Division wants this sector secured before German reinforcements arrive tomorrow. Can you finish it?" Mercer looked at the matchbox. 21 matches. Then looked across the ravine toward German lines invisible but mapped perfectly in his mind. "Yes, sir. I can finish it." After the officers left, Reeves turned to Mercer. "How do you finish something that's already broken?" "You prove the myth. Make it permanent. Give them a story they'll tell for years." "What kind of story?" Mercer pulled out 8 matches, began placing them at specific positions in a 200-yard radius. Each match positioned to tell a narrative. A false retreat. An American sniper fleeing under pressure, stopping at plausible cover points, leaving traces of his passage. "Story about a sniper who got careless," Mercer said. "Story they'll want to believe because it gives them something they can kill." Reeves watched him work. "You're building a trail." "I'm engineering movement. Germans won't advance on orders anymore. Officers are dead or ignored, but they will advance on opportunity. A wounded target, a fleeing enemy, something that looks like certain victory. And then I show them that certain victory was never certain at all." At 0900 hours, German scouts reported to their remaining officers that they'd found something. American sniper trail, signs of hasty repositioning, match marks at multiple stops. The sniper appeared to be falling back under pressure, making mistakes, exposing his route. The reports spread through German lines. After 3 days of terror and paralysis, here was something concrete, something they could act on. One American sniper retreating vulnerable. At 0930, a German hunter team mobilized. 5 men, experienced, angry. They'd lost friends to the American with matches. Now they had a trail to follow and permission to hunt. They moved cautiously at first. Professional. Sectors covered. Spacing forested, but the trail was so clear, so obvious. Match marks leading south through the forest, each position showing signs of brief occupancy. Disturbed ground, broken foliage, the kind of traces a tired sniper might leave. The Germans followed the story Mercer had written for them. At 0952, all 5 German soldiers entered a bowl-shaped depression surrounded by elevated positions. Natural funnel, poor tactical ground, the kind of place a desperate sniper might hide because he'd run out of better options. Cade Mercer watched them from 70 yards away, elevated, perfect angle. He'd been in position for 2 hours. Hadn't moved. Hadn't made a sound. The Matchbox trail led here, but he wasn't here. He was where tactics said he should be if he understood how tactics worked. The Germans spread out, searching the depression, looking for the American they thought was trapped. Mercer let them commit, let them believe. Let them get far enough into the killing ground that retreat would be tactical suicide. Then he fired. First shot dropped the lead scout. Second shot caught the patrol leader turning. Third shot found a rifleman diving for cover. Fourth shot stopped a soldier mid-sprint. Fifth shot ended the last man just as he reached the tree line. 45 seconds. 5 targets. Clean geometry. Reeves was watching from an adjacent position. His voice over the radio was quiet. They never saw you. They were looking for the trail sniper. You were the Overwatch sniper. Same thing, Mercer said. I was both. The trail was me. The Overwatch was me. I showed them what they wanted to see and killed them from where they weren't looking. That's not fair. War isn't fair, Silas. War is math. I created an equation where they had to choose between believing the evidence or surviving. They chose to believe. Math doesn't care about choices. Mercer marked 5 more kills in his notebook. Studied the matchbox. 13 left. The morning was only half over. At 1100 hours, Mercer built a second trail, this one more elaborate. 8 match positions forming a path toward a supposed observation point. He added details. Cigarette butts, expended brass casings, food tin opened carelessly, the detritus of occupation. Another German team followed this trail at 1230. 3 men this time, more cautious than the first group. They had heard about the morning's casualties, suspected a trap, but the evidence was overwhelming. Someone had been at these positions. Recently. The matches were still there, the trail was real. Except it wasn't. Every piece of evidence was theater, every detail calculated. Mercer had smoked the cigarettes himself 2 hours ago, fired the brass yesterday, opened the tin this morning, all of it staged to create a narrative the Germans needed to believe. They followed the trail into a ravine where Mercer had positioned himself behind them before they arrived, came at the problem from the direction they expected. He killed them from the direction they didn't. 3 more dead. 127 total. At 1300 hours, Lieutenant Kellerman found Mercer repositioning for a third sequence. She looked exhausted. The intelligence reports had been coming in all morning. German command structure in complete disarray. Units refusing orders. Soldiers abandoning positions. Radio discipline collapsed. Mercer, I need you to understand what you've created, Kellerman said. We've intercepted 17 separate transmissions in the last hour. German units across the entire sector reporting the same thing. Mysterious lights, simultaneous casualties, inability to locate American positions. One company commander said, quote, "We are fighting a phantom that hunts through light itself." Another said, "Our doctrine has become our executioner." Good, Mercer said simply. Good, Mercer, they're breaking. Not tactically. Psychologically. We've got reports of German soldiers shooting at shadows. Others refusing to occupy positions because sunlight hits them at certain times of day. This isn't combat stress. This is mass psychological trauma. Yes, ma'am, it is. And that doesn't bother you. Mercer stopped what he was doing, looked at her directly. Ma'am, 3 days ago we had 73 dead Americans in 3 weeks with zero progress. Today we've lost 4 men total and we're advancing 6 times faster than projected. The Germans are traumatized because their entire tactical framework collapsed. That's not cruelty. That's efficiency. Where's the line, Sergeant? The line is drawn where American casualties stop, ma'am. Everything on the German side of that line is warfare. Maybe it's warfare they weren't prepared for, but that's not my problem to solve. Kellerman studied him for a long moment. You've changed since you started this. You're colder. No, ma'am, I just stopped pretending math has feelings. 127 Germans are dead because they followed predictable patterns. 200 Americans are alive for the same reason. The math worked. That's all that matters. She didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was softer. The general wants to see you at 1600. Said it's about your classification request. I didn't make a classification request. He did, on your behalf. The Matchbox method is being sealed, top secret designation. No documentation beyond basic after-action report. Mercer felt something shift in his chest. Relief, maybe. He's protecting it. He's protecting the psychological impact. Division Intelligence Assessment says the fear of your method will last longer than the method itself. German units are already spreading stories. The sniper who kills through light, the American who sees through walls. 6 months from now, German soldiers across the entire Western Front will think twice before following protocol blindly. That's a strategic asset. So they're turning it into a myth. They're recognizing that the myth is more valuable than the technique. If we teach this to every sniper, Germans will adapt in weeks. But if it remains singular, belongs to one man in one battle, the mystery preserves the fear. Mercer looked at the matchbox in his hand. 13 matches left. A weapon that would never be replicated because replication would destroy what made it powerful. Ma'am, I need to finish this before 1600. Can you give me 3 hours? What are you going to do? Ensure the myth is worth preserving. The final operation of December 12th was the most elaborate. Mercer didn't build one trail. He built 3 simultaneous trails converging on a central position from different directions. Used all 13 remaining matches. Created evidence of not one American sniper, but 3 all retreating toward the same rally point. German commanders saw the intelligence at 1430. 3 American snipers isolated, potentially surrounded. A chance to eliminate the threat that had killed more than 100 men in 4 days. A chance for redemption. They assembled the largest force they could coordinate, 18 German soldiers, veterans, the best they had left. Orders were explicit: converge on the rally point from 3 directions, simultaneously eliminate all American personnel, recover bodies for identification. The Germans moved at 1500 hours. Mercer watched them come. He wasn't at the rally point. He was above it, elevated with clear fields of fire on all 3 approach roads. Reeves was positioned on the opposite ridge with a radio and specific instructions: don't fire unless Mercer is hit. The Germans moved well. Disciplined, using cover, communicating with hand signals. These weren't scared conscripts. These were professionals executing a coordination that should have worked. But they were converging on a position Mercer had abandoned 6 hours ago, following trails that led to nothing, hunting 3 snipers who didn't exist. At 1520, all 3 German elements entered the kill zone. 18 men in an area roughly 50 yards across. Perfect convergence. They realized too late that the rally point was empty. No Americans, no equipment, just match marks and false evidence. The trap wasn't the empty position. The trap was the convergence itself. Mercer opened fire from elevation they hadn't scouted because doctrine said you don't scout positions that don't overlook your objective. His position overlooked their approach routes, not their destination. They'd never considered it. The Springfield cracked in measured rhythm. 1 shot every 3 seconds. Target selection based on threat priority and exposure time. 18 targets, 54 seconds. Mathematical execution. When the shooting stopped, the forest was silent except for wind through empty trees. Reeves came over the radio. Cade, confirm. Confirm, 18 down. 0 return fire. They never located my position. Jesus Christ, that's 145 total. Mercer ejected the magazine, reloaded, safed the rifle. Looked at the empty matchbox on the ground beside him. 48 matches, 4 days, 145 confirmed kills. The network was destroyed. The sector was clear. The battle was over. But something else had been created in its place. Something that would outlive the battle and the men who fought it. A story, a legend, a myth about an American sniper who weaponized light itself and broke an army without breaking himself. Except Mercer had broken something. He just didn't know what yet. At 1600 hours, Mercer stood in division headquarters facing General Morrison, Captain Wallace, and Lieutenant Kellerman. On the table between them, casualty reports, tactical assessments, and a single wooden matchbox. Morrison was 58, career officer, had fought in the First War, and understood that innovation often looked like insanity until it worked. He studied Mercer with the expression of a man trying to solve an equation that had too many variables. Sergeant Mercer, Morrison said, in 4 days you have achieved what Division Command projected would take 6 weeks and cost 200 American lives. Your methodology has eliminated 145 enemy combatants, with 4 American casualties, none attributable to your operations. German defensive network in this sector has ceased to exist as a functional entity. Yes, sir. I've read Lieutenant Kellerman's analysis. She believes the psychological impact of your method will extend far beyond this battle. German units across the Western Front will hear about this. They'll question their doctrine, question air training. Some will question their own perception of reality. That's the assessment, sir. Morrison picked up the matchbox, turned it over in his hands. The Army wants to document this, turn it into training curriculum. Teach every sniper in the European theater how to exploit enemy behavioral patterns. No, sir. Excuse me. Respectfully, sir, no. The method shouldn't be taught. Morrison's expression hardened. That's not your decision, Sergeant. Sir, I understand that, but I'm asking you to consider something. This worked because it was singular. One man, one forest, one moment. The Germans had no defense because they'd never seen it before. But if we teach it, if we systematize it, they'll adapt within a month. They'll develop countermeasures, rewrite doctrine. The vulnerability closes. So you're suggesting we waste this innovation? No, sir. I'm suggesting we preserve it by not explaining it. Document that I killed 145 Germans in 4 days. Document the psychological collapse. But don't document how. Let it remain a mystery. Because mysteries create fear, and fear creates hesitation, and hesitation creates advantage. Kellerman spoke up. General intelligence supports this. We've already intercepted German transmissions, calling this unexplainable. One command specifically said, American capabilities exceed known parameters. If we keep it classified, that uncertainty persists. German soldiers across the entire theater will wonder if the American they're facing might be another Mercer. That hesitation is worth more than 100 taught techniques. Wallace added, Sir, the psychological warfare value alone justifies classification. The story is already spreading through German lines. By next week, every unit in the sector will know about the American who kills through light. That legend affects German decision-making, even in battles Mercer isn't part of. Morrison was silent for a long time. Finally, you're telling me the weapon is the myth, not the method. Yes, sir, Mercer said. The matches were just the interface. The real weapon was making them believe their own training would kill them. That belief survives whether I'm here or not. And you're willing to refuse a Medal of Honor recommendation to preserve that belief. I don't want a medal, sir. I want the 200 men who didn't die to go home. That's the only recognition that matters. Morrison set down the matchbox. Classified. Top secret designation, 60-year seal. No documentation beyond sanitized after-action report. The principle is recorded. Enemy doctrine can be exploited as vulnerability. But methodology remains restricted. Only you, Lieutenant Kellerman and Captain Wallace, know the full details. Is that acceptable, Sergeant? Yes, sir. Then you're dismissed. And Mercer, sir, what you did here was brilliant and terrifying. The Army needs men who can think like you, but I hope to God we never need this particular method again. Mercer saluted, turned to leave. Kellerman caught up with him outside headquarters. Sergeant, one more thing. We've completed preliminary interviews with German prisoners. I thought you should hear what they're saying. She handed him a folder. Translated statements from 3 POWs captured that afternoon. Prisoner 1, age 19, private. The American can kill you through light. He doesn't need to see you. The light sees for him. My sergeant told me, don't look at anything bright. I didn't look. My friend looked at sunlight on his canteen. He died. I don't understand how, but light kills now, I believe that. Prisoner 2, at 26, corporal. We were trained to mark light sources, to assess threats, but every time someone followed training, they died. The American made our training into a weapon against us. How do you fight someone who weaponizes the thing that kept you alive? Prisoner 3, age 31, lieutenant. We are not fighting tactics. We are fighting doctrine itself. The American proved our manual was wrong, not incomplete. Wrong. When doctrine fails, what do soldiers have left? Nothing. We have nothing left. Kellerman took the folder back. That last one is what breaks my heart. We have nothing left. You didn't just beat them, Mercer. You erased their foundation. War erases foundations, ma'am. I just chose which foundation to erase. Does that make it easier, knowing you broke their minds instead of just their bodies? Mercer didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. No, ma'am, it doesn't make it easier, but it makes more of our men go home alive. That's the only math I know how to calculate. 3 days later, December 15th, the sector was fully secured. German forces had withdrawn during the night of the 12th, abandoning positions they'd held for months. American 28th Division advanced 8 kilometers in 48 hours, encountering minimal resistance. Final casualty statistics painted a picture that would be studied for decades. Before Mercer, December 8th, American casualties. 73 KIA patrol success rate, 10% territory, gained at 0 meters. German sniper network operational at 98%. After Mercer, December 9-15. American casualties 4 KIA, none attributable to German snipers. Patrol success rate 94%, territory gained 8.2 kilometers. German sniper network operational at 0%. Private David Chen found Mercer on the morning of the 15th, preparing to move out with his unit to a different sector. Chen's platoon had advanced through positions that had killed 50 men the previous month. They'd walked through without a single casualty. Sergeant Mercer, Chen said, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me, Private. Just stay alive. That's all the thanks I need. Can I ask you something? What you did with the matches? How did you know it would work? Mercer pulled out his old notebook, handed it to Chen. This is 3 years of watching patterns. Enemy patterns, doctrine patterns, behavioral patterns. Everything I learned before the army. Everything I learned in Normandy. Everything I learned here. You ever face an impossible enemy? Chen don't fight their strength. Find what they can't stop doing, then make that thing kill them. Is that what your father taught you? My father taught me patterns don't lie. War taught me how to weaponize them. Chen looked at the notebook, then handed it back. Will you teach this to others? No, can't teach it. It only works once in one place against one enemy. Try to repeat it and it dies. But the principle behind it, that's worth remembering. An enemy is defeated when the rules that protect them become the rules that kill them. Chen nodded slowly, saluted and walked away. Mercer watched him go. One more soldier who had survived because doctrine had been broken instead of followed. Silas Reeves found him an hour later. They'd been partners for 4 days that felt like 4 years. Reeves had seen things he'd never talk about. Watched a coal miner from Kentucky rewrite warfare using wooden matches and behavioral mathematics. Cade, Reeves said, you heading out. New assignment, different sector, back to conventional work. No more Matchbox tricks. No more Matchbox tricks. That door's closed now. Reeves was quiet for a moment. Then, do you ever think about them, the Germans, the ones who died looking at your lights? Mercer had been asked this question by Kellerman, by Wallace, by division psychiatrist who'd interviewed him yesterday. He gave Reeves the only honest answer he had. Every night, I see them turning their heads, following the pattern I created, dying because they did what they were trained to do. And every morning I wake up and I'm glad it was them instead of us. Both things are true and I don't know how to reconcile them. That's the most human thing I've heard you say in 4 days. I'm not a machine, Silas. I just act like one when the math requires it. But the math doesn't stop when the shooting stops. I'll be calculating this for the rest of my life. They shook hands. Reeves went back to his unit. Mercer packed his gear. The empty matchbox went into his pocket, not as trophy, but as reminder. 48 matches, 4 days, 145 lives taken to save 200 lives. The math worked. The faces didn't fade. Both things were true. Both would be true forever. The matchbox went into his pocket. Not as a trophy, as a weight. He'd carry it for 47 years. Kentucky, 1953, 9 years after the forest. Cade Mercer, 36 years old, stood at the entrance to coal mine number 7, the same mine where his father died. He was mine safety inspector now, had been since he came home. A young miner, 19, named Bobby Hatch, approached. Nervous, first week on the job. Mr. Mercer, foreman, said you wanted to see me. You were in Section 4 today, Mercer said. Not a question. Yes, sir. How'd you come with me? Mercer led him down into Section 4, pointed to a support timber. See that crack? Bobby squinted, barely. Started yesterday, that's one. Mercer moved the lamp. Hear that sound? What sound? Air pressure dropping. That's 2. He knelt, ran fingers through coal dust. Dust falling. That's 3. Bobby's face went pale. 3 signs. Means you evacuate. Right out now. Get your crew out. The foreman's gonna say I'm paranoid. Mercer looked at him, saw himself at 19. The foreman doesn't pay attention to patterns. Patterns don't care. Your job is to read them. Their job is to live because you did. Bobby ran back up. 15 minutes later, the crew evacuated Section 4. 2 hours after that, the section collapsed. 0 casualties. Bobby found Mercer in the office afterward. How did you know? My father taught me. Then the war taught me. Now I'm teaching you. Mercer pulled out the old matchbox, empty, worn. Patterns are everywhere, son. In mines, in war, in people. You learn to read them, you save lives. You learn to weaponize them. He didn't finish. Sir, Mercer put the matchbox away. Just save lives, Bobby. That's enough. Kentucky, 1974, 30 years after the forest. U.S. Army historian Captain James Werner sat across from Cade Mercer, now 57, in the living room of a small house in Harlan County. Mr. Mercer, the Army is declassifying selected World War II operations. We'd like to document the Hurtgen engagement for historical. No. Sir, with respect, your contribution to... I said no, Captain. Werner set down his pen. Can I ask why, boy? Mercer was quiet for a long time. Outside, his daughter, Rachel, 26, played with her son in the yard. 3 generations. All alive because of patterns recognized and patterns broken. You want to know why, Mercer finally said? Because the day you document it, the day you explain it, someone will try to replicate it. And replication means it stops being impossible. Impossible is what made it work. But the tactical innovation isn't tactics, it's psychology. And psychology doesn't repeat. You can't train someone to do what I did because what I did only worked once against men who'd never seen it before. Try it twice and you're just lighting matches while the enemy shoots you. Werner leaned forward. Then what's the lesson, sir? What should we teach? Mercer looked at him. Teach them that doctrine is a tool, not a religion. Teach them that the enemy's strengths can be inverted into weaknesses. Teach them that winning isn't about firepower. It's about seeing what the other side can't stop themselves from doing. That's already in the manual, sir. Then why are you here? Werner had no answer. After he left, Rachel came inside. Dad, was that about the war? Yeah. You never talk about it. No. Why? Mercer pulled out the matchbox, still carried it, 30 years later. Because talking about how you won doesn't change what winning cost. Rachel was quiet. Then, Grandpa's notebook, the one I found when I was 10. Did you write that? Yes. Did you mean it about not being able to see people as people anymore? Mercer looked at his daughter, his grandson, his wife in the kitchen. I meant it then. Took me 20 years to learn how to see people again. Your mother taught me. You taught me. This life taught me. So you don't still calculate. I still calculate. But now I calculate how many years your son has before the draft. How many students I can train to read mind collapses? How many people go home safe because I paid attention? He smiled, small, genuine. Turns out pattern recognition works for peace too. Just took me a while to learn that. Rachel hugged him. I'm glad you did. So was he. Kentucky, 1991. 47 years after the forest. Cade Harlan Mercer died at 74. Peacefully, in his sleep, surrounded by family. At the funeral, 43 former miners attended. Every one of them alive because Mercer had predicted a collapse. Bobby Hatch, now 67, gave the eulogy. Cade Mercer saved my life in 1953, Section 4. He saw a collapse coming that I couldn't see. Evacuated the crew. 0 casualties. Over 38 years, he predicted 17 near collapses. Never lost a single man. Bobby pulled out a wooden matchbox. He gave me this when I made inspector. Said patterns are everywhere. Use them to save lives. That's enough. I asked him once if he learned that in the mine. He said no. Said he learned it in a forest in Germany. Learned it the hard way. Bobby set the matchbox on the casket. I don't know what happened in that forest. He never said. But I know this, whatever Cade Mercer did in the war, he spent the rest of his life doing the opposite. Saving instead of taking. Building instead of breaking. Teaching instead of hiding. That's the man I knew. That's the man we'll remember. The matchbox stayed with Mercer, buried with him. The weight he'd carried for 47 years finally laid to rest. Fort Benning, 2004. 60 years after the forest. The Mercer Protocol declassified. Military analysts stunned. Historians fascinated. The matchbox trick studied, dissected, analyzed. But they were studying a ghost. The technique didn't work anymore. German doctrine had evolved. Modern training included counter-pattern recognition protocols. The vulnerability Mercer exploited had closed decades ago. What remained was the lesson: find what the enemy can't stop doing. Make that thing kill them. And the story: one man, 48 matches, 4 days. An entire network destroyed not by firepower, but by understanding that humans are predictable, and predictability is fatal. The wooden matchbox sits in a museum case now. Small placard, the tool that changed modern warfare. But Cade Mercer's real legacy isn't in the museum. It's in 17 mine collapses that never killed anyone. It's in 43 miners who went home to their families. It's in a grandson who never got drafted because the war ended before his time. It's in the understanding that pattern recognition can save lives or end them, and the choice between those two things defines who you are. Cade Mercer chose both, carried the weight of both, and spent 47 years proving that the man who learned to weaponize patterns could also learn to use them for peace. The faces from the forest never faded. He never expected them to, but he learned to see other faces too. Living faces, grateful faces. Faces of people who went home safe because he read patterns and saved lives instead of ending them. Both things were true. Both would always be true. And in the end, that was enough.